Thanks. It's great to be here, and I think this. I'm glad to see so many seats full because this is kind of a different session, I think, than we've been having throughout the day. And we've talked a lot about ABM and strategies and tactics and different really great case studies and stories around how folks are tackling this. And we're kind of going to back it way up and take it up a level around marketing leadership. And it's certainly relevant because it's challenging to influence an organization to perhaps transform and shift into some of these new ABM-oriented things or any other new initiative or anything transformative that you're leading in your organization within marketing. And we thought about this session to focus on kind of how to become the future of the CMO of the future or marketing leader of the future. And many of you are probably already in marketing positions, and others perhaps you aspire to. So I think this is will have a little bit of an advice tone, but we want to invite, I think it's a small enough group, folks in the audience to share their perspective too, maybe not just during the Q&A, so feel like you're part of the panel and please jump in. I have, as Katie said, a panel of rock stars here, and I'm going to ask you guys to introduce yourselves. Maybe everyone's names up here, but a little bit about what your company does, and also what it is, what your specialty has been, and what do you think it is that has gotten you to where you are in your career to date as a marketing leader and CMO inside your companies. Brian, why don't you start? We'll start with the
Thanks.
the
I'm Brian
man
Carden.
for once.
Thanks for all being here at the end of the day. Wish we had some espresso for everyone, but glad you're here. I'm CMO of a company called Fuse, and we do unified communication. So it's phone and it's group messaging and it's video, all in the cloud. And we're growing very rapidly, Boston-based. We raised about $200 million. We'll do about $100 million in revenue this year, and the company's on a really nice growth path. Previously, I was CMO of a predictive analytics company, Lattice Engines. And before that, sort of my introduction to software, which I love, I was CMO of Eloqua. And so I was able to build a great team there, and we had a very successful run, sort of creating the category alongside Marketo and others in marketing automation. So that's sort of my thing. I think my specialty is more demand generation and more metrics driven because of my experience at Eloqua in particular. But I tend to be a little bit more strategic, and so very often work with sales leadership on which accounts we should target, messaging, acquisitions, those kinds of things. But glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Shelley.
My name is Shelley. I work for a company called Clearpool. We provide trading technology to broker-dealers. I got my start in direct marketing many moons ago, and I love all things that is technology. So I'm very technologically curious. So where I say I got, what's led me here today is actually the fact that I have a DM backbone, that personalization and measurement is part of my DNA, and that technology has taken us this far, and I have an insatiable appetite for it. I am a continuous learner around how technology can help me be a better marketer. So that's how I got here.
I got here because Katie asked me. And Kelly via Katie. But
Katie.
My name is Claudine Bianchi. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Click Software. Click Software is a $150 million company. We're privately held, and we're in the field service management industry, also in the tech industry. I personally have been in the B2B marketing space for 25 plus some odd years. So going back to the mid-'80s, actually started out as an engineer. I was a terrible engineer. That's why I'm now in marketing. Try to do sales, but I couldn't close. That's a whole nother story. But I have in the Boston tech area have been head of marketing at Avid Technologies, or corporate marketing at Avid, Navisite. Have worked a lot with the VC community here at a number of different startups. And I think your question was
Specialty. What do you think it
specialty.
is that kind of propelled you to,
Yeah,
you know,
I think I'm a
CMO?
builder. I think you mentioned it too about just recently. I look at the CMO as being more the change management officer within an organization. People hire a CMO really to bring something new to the table, whether it's a new brand, whether it's a new way of generating business, new business models. So, that's really where I find my strength is in the ability to build or change.
Great. So for the first topic I want to talk about, it's just to preface, I think it's the Army or West Point has a view that leaders get the team they deserve, right? And that's an element, if you inherit a team, it's all about your leadership and how you get that team to perform. But a lot of times as CMOs, we get to choose our teams, right? And so I want to talk a little about, sort of what you look for as you're building or as you're, taking your organization to the next level inside your companies and in candidates, right? And, I'm a huge subscriber to the notion of, we've been talking about ABM here today, ABR, which is always be recruiting, and kind of the combination of that philosophy aligned with kind of that you get the team you deserve. I think that's there's so much opportunity. I mean, in any function really, but particularly in marketing now. And as you think out, what you may have needs right now, but how do you think about those skills and the characteristics of those candidates that are going to kind of grow with you and get you where you need to go in the future?
Shelley
Thoughts on
mentioned
that?
a very good phrase, this curiosity about things. So I always look for that in teams, people who are naturally curious and they want to know how things work, and they always want to improve. So I think marketing is about learning and always optimizing. So we're all students. We're all students of learning new marketing technologies, how our campaigns have performed, putting that infrastructure, be able to read everything. So I look for people who are sort of naturally very curious. And I think goes along with that is people who are very transparent about it's not working or it is working. Sometimes I've seen marketing organizations only talk about the most successful things they do. And all children are not above average. Some children are below average. And we should understand that. And sort of, I think it brings a lot of credibility to the team, even to the board level, to the CEO, when you talk about things that weren't as effective, because everything's not great. So I think that curiosity, and then I think this idea of transparency, and being very open to learning things and talking about the results of campaigns and programs, what worked, what didn't work.
How do you test for kind of the curiosity piece or some of these softer skills, softer,
I think it's a lot in the questions that you get asked by the interviewee. So I'm always intrigued with the questions they ask about the product, about the market, why we're in the business that we're in. I always think that's a really red flag if there are no questions. But the thoughtful questions, you can tell if they've read your website and that they're identifying those the white space on your website, and making really intelligent questions for me is usually a good sign that they're going to be curious and fit that mold.
Yeah, so I think for me, I've been fortunate or crazy just enough to follow startups and be that person who can start and build these teams from scratch. So I've had the ability to build lots of teams, and what I technically try to look for most of the time are left brain and right brain thinkers. I think marketing has been moved out of this position where it was just, sit in a corner and create pretty pictures and create a brand, to really having a seat at the table and really driving business and driving revenue and being that glue that brings operations and technology and product and the executive team all together on a strategic vision that drives the company forward. And I think that really comes with a level of curiosity, a love of marketing, and that sort of left brain and right brain thinking working together, where you can actually come up and develop really strategic and creative solutions to solve problems.
Years ago, I was CMO of a very large company, Reed Elsevier. I inherited about 150 people in the marketing team, and I thought early in my career, when I was CMO of this company, that I could transform them, and that was a big mistake. I remember years ago, I went to the Disney Institute, and the question was asked, everyone smiles at Disney, how do you train that? And they said, we don't train for that, we hire for that. And so I think that's a big part of it. And so early on, I thought that I could coach and mentor. There's a lot of energy spent in that area, and now I'm starting to realize that you got to hire for those kinds of characteristics.
Yeah, there's also an element, I think, in some of the earlier, maybe I work a lot with growth stage companies, and over the course of my career, it's like pre-revenue to 100 million and everywhere in between. And when you're building out, you're all about execution and acceleration, and you look at skill and will, and sometimes you can really get excited about someone's will, but when it comes down to, and it kind of goes back to, particularly like on the technology side, or are they technology optimists? Are they curious? Are they going to be resourceful and go in and figure it out? And sometimes no, like you have to hire the person who's done that before, right? So that's always a interesting thing to balance and to gauge.
I find that the folks, if you bring them in, even without domain expertise or skills can be taught. Energy and a positive attitude and a real will to succeed can't be taught. So I always err on the side of having someone that's ambitious, who might not know everything, but has that tremendous willingness to learn and to overachieve on that, rather than necessarily having the exact skill set that I might be looking for, to put in a particular position.
Good. Any, I guess, on the topic of, recruiting and skills, and anything anybody wants to add or ask and from the audience before we switch topics a little bit? Crickets.
Yeah.
Please.
What are your biggest red flags when interviewing for marketing talent?
Oh, I have one I'm going to jump to quick, because I interview on behalf of our portfolio companies a lot. And even in Edison, we've added a lot of folks recently. This is so basic, and this is not even going to be a useful answer because it's so basic, but it's so missed too often. The follow-up. Are you kidding me? Not even a, follow-up reflecting back on our conversation, why you're a great candidate for the role. Where is this lost? I mean, I used to appreciate when I got the handwritten note. I'm not even getting an email now, on these things.
But I think a generic reply is worse than no reply.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It's like,
I totally agree.
We spent an hour together, you don't remember anything specific to say? I couldn't agree more.
Oh, ridiculous.
I think for me, it would be lack of preparation. And I think that's probably, for me, the most obvious thing when we talk and when I start opening interviews up. I technically don't sit down and have a list of interview questions. I sort of open it up in the middle of a conversation and ask you what interests you, or what interested you about this company, or why do you want to work here, or where do you see yourself in 10 years, and how does that help me drive this business, or something like that. I throw out really random questions that would require that you at least have to have read something about me and the website and the company and put some effort in. So lack of preparation is probably the biggest for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The ability to differentiate yourself from other candidates. If you can't do that for yourself and you're applying for a marketing role, how successful are you going to be for my products? So that's always a key red flag for me if they can't get to that fairly quickly.
Thank you. A fascinating question about what you hire for. It's interesting. I just participated in a session with on enterprise sales, and we asked that question to the panel, and it was interesting. The panel came back and says, we hire for passion. And in sales, in enterprise sales, which is kind of different than what you would expect. I need someone that can understand this technology and so forth. And it's like they don't care whether it's passion for the Patriots or Tom Brady or Deflategate or whatever it is. It's they want that person to have passion for something because they believe if you can find passion for something, you can transfer it to your company and your product. Does that relate to the marketing space? I also heard the panel talk about curiosity. And I think that's a fascinating one you hire for. Are you curious or do you have passion? But what are we missing? What else would the panel think is critical to find out about a potential marketing candidate?
Well, I think it actually has to go beyond passion, right? You can't just be passionate. For me, it can't be passionate about anything, right? Every job that I've had some belief in that company was going to be successful, and I believed in that product because that's what made me passionate. That's what got me up every morning. And maybe I've been lucky enough to do that, or maybe I've just sourced jobs that have given me that ability. So I think that you have to step beyond passion and actually look into the role that you're taking and making sure that's something you want to get up and go to every morning because it's a job and it's part of your life and it should be valuable for you. So.
I always look for a good communicator. So they'll be talking about something they really love, whether it's cycling or travel or wine or something, and I'll dig into that and ask something that I don't know the answer to, and I'll see if they can explain it to me in a way that sort of demystifies something that's always been difficult. So I want to see if they can communicate things, because they have to communicate to the sales team, to other peers. So can they communicate something that they know that the other person doesn't in a very easy to consume way?
You know, I'd add to that because I think communication is a big part of this, and the way to interview for this might be a little different depending on the level of the marketing hire. But I want to know, like, I'm thinking my lieutenant or like a VP or director level. I want them to tell me stories about how they influenced, how they drove alignment, and you got to be a good communicator for that. You've got to, how do you campaign for things, make proposals for things? Like, tell me a story about change that you drove or participated in, and it involved other departments and working cross-functionally. I think the alignment piece is increasingly important in marketing, the ability to work cross-functionally in that way. And I want to hear I want them to tell me stories about it, because if they can do that and maybe some impact, hard metrics around the result of it. But if folks can do that, you're going to get a lot out of someone who can operate like that, a real operator.
Just one other thing there. I always want to hear something that didn't go well and what they learned from it. And that's part of this idea of being transparent. So It's one of these, I'm too meticulous or one of these things. You got to keep digging until you find something that really didn't go well at all, and to see how they present it. They either present it as a failure or as a learning experience. That reflects a lot of their sort of optimism and that they're continuously learning. So I always look for something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, more and more, just to add on to that, too, is I look for the relationship that the person has with their sales counterparts. More and more, especially as CMO, I had a board meeting this morning, and I did a joint presentation with my head of sales, which is...
As it should be.
As it should be. But you'd be surprised how much friction there is between marketing and sales organizations. And for companies really to be successful, and when we talk about account-based marketing and everything else, you'll notice that if you're not, this is not going to be successful for you unless you have that relationship with sales. I remember I was doing a panel somewhere, and a bunch of marketing people were in the room, and I asked them, when was the last time you took your head of sales out, or a sales rep, or went on a sales call, or do you know what your pipeline goals are? Do you know what a particular sales rep's quota is? I mean, that's critical for a marketer to know. especially moving forward. If we want that place in the table, I have the same exact goals as the head of sales.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and that gives me the right to sit next to him at this head of, at the table, and command that type of discussion. But that's because we have that relationship. And the future CMO, if you don't have that relationship, you're not going to get ahead. So start early in your career, start in the middle of your career, start tomorrow.
Yeah, start
grab
co-presenting
a
with
person.
sales
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Yeah,
The board
absolutely.
wants to see that too, by the way. Whether you're trying to raise money or you're giving a board update, anything to do with revenue, that's a shared funnel ownership. That's a shared, it's a shared conversation. Don't, divide it up departmentally. Like,
I do want to
with
check
this
one other
over here,
relationship
right?
I think is key that a lot of marketers overlook, because I think we always go naturally to our peer in sales, which is super important, but it's the CFO. And that is, sometimes we view the CFO as an adversary, someone who's looking to cut our budget, but I found that they can be your best partner. And so when I'm figuring out my metrics, my CAC ratio, my lifetime value, my cost, I go to my CFO and I say, here's how I'm thinking of calculating it, what do you think? So they have complete ownership of what I'm doing. Because there's going to be that moment when you're not in the room and the CEO turns to the CFO and says, what do you think of marketing? Are they spending the money responsibly? Are they good people? And you can also use the CFO to get more money for you.
Absolutely.
And
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
unbelievable.
Absolutely.
So if you can really make the case, like here's a program for X dollars and here's what we did to addition to the pipeline, they will be your best advocate because they want to spend the money the right way. And so I've had a couple cases, actually very recently, where I was going to go to the CEO and make my case, but I first made it to the CFO to sort of bulletproof it and everything. And literally 4 hours later, the CFO said, you don't have to meet with the CEO, I got you the money. So it was like one of these, whoa, that was really great. But that's the person that I spend a lot of time with, the CFO. And I think very often we ignore that, or we think they're just don't want us to spend any money and they're our enemy, but they can be our best friend.
Yeah, I think the future role of marketing, you'll see it really is a wheel where the marketer is in the middle, and it's the spokes that you're touching every piece of this organization, and you are really bringing them all together around a solidified vision and strategy. And you almost become the sort of right hand and ear to your CEO as well as that sort of confidant, because you're sort of dealing with everyone on a day-to-day basis around the things that you're trying to accomplish for the company. So making those relationships early, being able to communicate and making all these folks your allies is really important for the future marketer.
Agreed.
We have 2 minutes. Okay. So I'm going to jump way ahead because we're talking about folks who are hiring or and some of these, the characteristics and things we're looking for in building their teams. What about your own personal development? What are the things that, like, you're already there, you're in the CMO role, you made it, right? How do you continue to stay fresh, relevant? What are some of, be a little vulnerable with the group here. Like, I need to work, my thing that I want to continue to strive to work on to be better for the company or just individually, personally. What are some of those development areas that you have for yourself in this role?
I have one right now. So I know my swim lane really well. I've been doing it for a long time. And so I have a chance to take on a BDR team, which is sort of the first line. And I've never had that before. And then also customer success. So I've never run customer success. And my first reaction is, I don't want them. I like because I know my swim lane really well. It's my comfort zone. And then I thought about it some more, and I said, boy, that's a way to really get me engaged and get excited. Like, I can learn new things, and this is great for me. So I think sort of expanding what we do, and it's sort of a natural place to go, to handle the BDRs, to do a lot of the qualifications, and I think customer success, because we want to get close to the customers. So I think there's some additional areas that marketers could do that aren't sort of typical. And so that's where I am right now.
But still leverages all the fundamentals of your comfort zone. I think that's, that's perfect. Congrats.
I haven't decided to do it yet.
What do you think, Shelley?
As odd as this sounds, I take vendor meetings. So I will actually set time once a month or so, definitely within a quarter, where I'll sort of rank and stack vendors that are doing new and different things, and I may have no intention on doing business with any of them, but I really want to know what they're doing. So I'll take the meetings. I'll plan them, schedule them, and have them in and have them come talk to me because they know their industry the best. So that's how I learn, and I also try to surround myself by people who are much smarter than I am.
So I think it's perfecting the craft of marketing, which is a continuous improvement. But for me personally, it's what's the step after CMO. Because the CMO now has a seat at the table, hopefully in the next 5-10 years, are we the next heir apparents to the CEO function? And if that's the case, what do I do today to start preparing myself to take on a role like that? So it's getting much better at the financial aspects of driving a business forward. It's looking at the legal aspects. It's looking at things that are way outside of my comfort zone that I have no background in to start taking on and getting a better experience around that.
And I would agree with that because if you're reading any of the trades now, that is the jargon, that is the trend that people are saying that's happening, is that CMOs are going to be the heir apparents to the CEO. And we are going to have to learn all of those things that you had just spoken about. So I definitely
CMO
agree with
and
that.
COO, or
Yeah.
there's a lot of kind of evolution of what CMO means in
The merger
taking
with the
on,
CIO. And,
yeah, like you have technology budget. You're more focused on process and alignment and end-to-end around your go-to-market than maybe you had been before. So yeah, that makes sense.
The role has definitely evolved.
Oh,
Does
yeah.
anyone in
Oh, yeah.
the audience have kind of areas in your marketing leadership roles that you sort of have acknowledged or felt within your roles in your companies that or should be of particular focus or are focus for you that you'd like to share?
Seems pretty obvious given where we are, but I mean, as someone who's been in demand gen roles for a long time, switching the mentality to focus on ABM from being horizontally lead, based to how do we now think about this in a different way, has definitely, and I'm sure for a lot of people here, sort of stretched your abilities a little bit, and I think it's going to give rise to a new profession for people. You'll have your demand gen team, your lead gen team, and you'll have your ABM folks. So that's definitely been like a stretch thing for me, for sure.
Hi, hi Brian.
Hi.
I'm gonna connect with you after. I'm 30 days into running marketing for my company, and this is my first role running all of marketing. So it's a little.
So you've got it
scary.
all figured out.
I have it all figured out in 30 days. And what I'm finding, which is interesting, we're still a kind of small venture capital funded marketing. The board has high expectations of me being able to understand our market, the personas, the fit of our product, and where we're going after next. We've got a lot of very smart engineers who've developed a great product, but I'm finding I prepared after 2 weeks there. Prepared for a large Ford meeting and really had to bring together a lot of the company's slides to talk about not just what I'm doing 30, 60, 90 days, but how are we going to get to the right product market fit so that the board will feel like the management team knows what it's doing. So that's an interesting, angle on marketing that I hadn't thought of previously. So
This is your first VC-backed
no,
company?
It's my
Oh, no.
third, but my first work
In the leadership
for
role,
marketing.
yeah.
Yep.
It,
If you have any 30, 60, 90 day tips.
Do you know what? Every
I'm
board,
like, that's so big. Yeah.
every board will be impressed if you get out there and start talking to your customers and documenting it. That's the only way you're going to learn. All right, go on a sales call, sit on a tech support call, actually get a product demo, learn the product, and get out there and start talking to customers. Just
Be
pick up the phone.
thoughtful about what you don't know. Rookie observations, share those regularly and admit, even in the form of questions, like just things you don't know, because then you'll go, like if you can crystallize what you really need to feel like you need to know to be successful or to put together that plan or what have you, then it's all going to come together. But sometimes it's the pressure of what's the strategy, what's the plan? Well, what are your questions? Talking to customers, we answer some of those questions. Using your colleagues, use people outside your organization. Get hooked up with a peer group. I'm not sure. Are you in Boston, Brian? Don't you aren't you involved?
I can't see because of the lights. Oh, hi. So one suggestion I have is the world premiere of your 30-60-90 should not be at the board meeting. So I think it's very important to find an insider on the board who is a friend of the family, who is someone you can share things with. And then when you start presenting, you have an advocate who's someone who feels, just like we talked about the CFO, they feel some ownership of it. So on my board, every board sort of has someone who's much more skilled or experienced in sales and marketing. You may want to find that board member and begin to share some of your thoughts before the board meeting. And so that will help you a lot if sort of the first words from a board member are very positive and sort of have good momentum. Because I've sometimes seen things go the wrong way. So finding a partner on the board could be very, very helpful, or multiple board members before just to show them a rough draft, or here's what I'm thinking of sharing, what do you think, get their input, and that can be very helpful.
I absolutely agree. And use, even as you're formulating your plan and getting all of this together and formulating those questions, ask your board to introduce you to other folks like you in their portfolio who have gone through this, and surround yourself with peers who have faced this, or folks who have been through it a bunch of times. They started to say, I know you belong to a Boston kind of VP of marketing group, or CMO group. Find those groups, but you want to take. It sounds like you're in early stages, and input from a lot of different perspectives and angles will help, but to actually make the effort with your board to get them engaged. They know you're going through this process, and get other folks in the portfolio involved in their portfolios.
And I think the board meeting, that should not be the only time that you're talking to board members. You've got to find reasons to reach out to board members in those 90 days between board meetings with a topic that needed some input in, or an introduction. So it should be a continuous relationship with the board. And I've seen so often the only time the board interacts with the CMO is at the board meeting, and it's kind of stilted what's going on, and good job, and you move on. But I think you want to have a real relationship with the board members so that they can see you in action, they interact with you in more natural ways other than a formal presentation in front of the whole board. So that would be an important thing to sort of get into that cadence of talking to board members throughout the year.
Good advice.
Great question up front. This is like AA for marketers. I love it.
Hi, my name is Daniel. I'm from a startup called Rugium. And, many times I've always worked in startups, right? And many times I will say that the only competitive advantage a startup has is being disruptive, because all the competitors are more talent, they got more talent, more money, more everything, right? Better products, no matter what. And specifically for marketing, disruptive means also doing things differently than others, because the others have marketing departments that are 10 times bigger, 10 times more budget. So my only way is to be different, right? So my question to you is, how do you build a culture of different in a B2B marketing department? Because my experience is the minute you have more than 5 people, just tends to fall into place, right? So what do you do to make it different, if you do?
Just there's something on that which I found sort of a David and Goliath story, and my advice would be to pick a fight. And of course, if you look at Benioff and Behind the Cloud and what he did with Oracle, there are lots of examples of small companies picking a fight with a giant, and at some point, the giant acknowledges you. And so that's a way to get tremendous leverage, because you're right, everyone's doing retargeting, or we're doing nurturing, we're doing scoring. So how do you get an advantage here? And I think that if you can create a media story about David and Goliath, and you pick a fight with a large, well-entrenched, stupid, competitor, that's a great one, and most of them are. So most of the disruptors in this room do have a large, well-entrenched competitor. And so I found picking a fight and being sort of public about it. Now, the CEO and the board may say, oh my God, we don't want to scare Microsoft or Oracle. You don't want to do that. That's exactly what you want to do. Mm-hmm. It's exactly what you want to do. So I found that's a very good way to get sort of a lot of leverage right away, to pick a fight with a large competitor.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that, because the reasoning behind that is that you have the agility to shift and you can move very fast, right? And when you're going after that giant, they just can't turn that corner as quickly as you can. So you'll get that sort of upstart in the market right before that, before they can actually catch up to you at that point.
There's also partners. If there's a particular partner out there, or a systems integrator, whatever, for enterprises that none of your competitors are working for, but you could actually bring value and create a win-win situation, that's a way to get very big very fast, or appear bigger than you are.
But it's also important to stay focused, right?
Yeah.
So that's why you're at an ABM conference, right? You can't go after everything. You have to be really structured and focused in what you want to do.
There's also, this is somewhat tactical, but I've been in teams where, and in cultures, in startup organizations, and have seen them, where you want to have a culture of innovation, or kind of inspire that. And if innovating around being different, being provocative, being, it's something, it doesn't stop with the marketing department, right? Like, it could be, there's like the age-old joke, everybody wants to be in marketing, or everybody thinks they're a marketer. There have been times where I've not liked it, but for the most part, I enjoy other people and fresh ideas and that kind of thing. But if you can create an environment where you can, whether it's in marketing or throughout the whole organization, to kind of foster innovation around being different, and reward folks and make everyone feel like they're contributing and driving toward that, ultimately what is your market-facing position, that can go a long way. You can get a lot out of a company to contribute there. Good. Are we
There's
done?
one in the back. Wait,
Oh, sorry.
She's been
One more.
waiting for a while.
It's going to be the last one, and we're right out of time. This will be our last one, so it better be good.
We're over time.
Pressure. I'm just joking.
We didn't have beer to hang. Thank God we didn't have the beer to
You talked
hang out.
earlier
Right?
about what you look for when you're hiring, and about what you're doing now to get to the next level. I don't think you spoke about what you did to get to where you are now, and I'd like to hear a little bit in terms of whether it was something you did yourselves, or whether it was something that others were looking for that you noticed. What got you to where you are?
I'll start. I had a really good mentor when I started in direct marketing who cut my wings early and told me to go out and find a job that I would really enjoy doing. And the biggest advice that they gave to me was to sort of stick to my guns around follow the things that you love. And I followed technology all the way through the dot-com boom, bust, to where we are now. So I think stay true to what you are passionate about, and you'll do well.
I feel very lucky. My career was not going well after college. So I had 3 terrible jobs. I couldn't figure out what was going on. And so I got a master's degree, and that sort of restarted my career. And so I became a consultant at a large consulting firm, became a partner there. And then we had children, and I didn't want to travel anymore. So the first marketing job I was ever offered was CMO of a $5 billion a year company. And so I feel very lucky. So I never grew up in a marketing organization. So I was a consultant. I was very good at slides and analysis and running teams. And so that was totally new for me. So I feel kind of blessed to have had this career. And so I don't take much credit for it. It just sort of happened in a lot of ways. And I've been very lucky to work with some wonderful people. Quite a few are sitting in this room.
Can I make a good point? I like that you said you have a master's degree, because I'm actually the director of marketing at New England Institute of Technology, and we offer master's degrees.
That's great.
For me, it's been not fearing failure. I think from the very first start. I mean, I started as an engineer because I couldn't find a job. I was an English major, so I said, what the heck? I learned assembly programmer language, which was archaic, and that gives you some sense of how old I am. But it is that continuous look at yourself and stepping outside of that comfort zone, taking risks, and if you fail, forgiving yourself and going on to the next thing. And it's the cycle of continuous improvement that you will have along your career, and recognizing that and having a lot of self-awareness about what you don't know, that will help you get further along. That was it.
All right.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.